Good morning, folks. Welcome to an impromptu Pit Village Trader broadcast on an early Monday morning, 27th of April 2020. I was yesterday, or in the last couple of days, asked a couple of questions about some short-term investment ideas, strategies. Stick the disclaimer at the front here. Remember, none of this is actual advice because I just speculate. This is purely hypothetical role-play stuff. But I hope it's useful to you if you're interested in thinking of some short-term possible investments. Now, my thinking today has led me down this route. The COVID Corporate Financing Facility, CCFF, which is a British government initiative to support businesses through the COVID crisis. So those businesses who are eligible for short-term loans and things like that. The claim by the government is that more than 330 billion of loans and guarantees are being approved to help companies get through this time. However, the knowledge or the transparency on which companies are getting access to this money is very, very thin. So the government and Bank of England refuse to let the public know which corporates are being bailed out with public funds. Why does that bother me, given that I am someone who doesn't really care about the news that much? And I don't care about the news. I think most of it is propaganda, and it's used to control a narrative and get people to do things the way they want. However, the one thing that I always advocate is that you buy on strength and you sell on weakness. Now, how do we see which companies are strong and which companies are weak? Well, we look at the recent price action over the last however long your time frame might be. That might be a month, it might be 3 months, 6 months, a year. I usually use a year, but let's just go with this thing. So my thinking at the moment is pretty much every single company on the index lost 30% of its value. It's a general statement. Not all of them did. Some of them did manage to withstand the initial fall. I mentioned one a few weeks ago, Spirent Communications, which since then has done reasonably well. However, most companies lost 30%. Now, where is the opportunity in all of this? Well, if you could figure out which companies had access to the public bailout money as a short-term strategy, you're probably going to be holding onto your value or increasing your value if you get in at now, while the short-term commercial paper, as they call it, is coming in. That's going to give investors the illusion that a company is strength and the sentiment that there's strength behind the shares. So it's an interesting idea to try and identify those companies that do have access to these funds. So how are we going to know that? Well, at the moment, it's very thin, but this particular article from the London Economic has stated that, given us a few clues. I think it's named a couple. Here we go. So basically, the reason why you can't do that is if you get access to this loan, you have to sign a confidentiality agreement with the bank. So the bank requires you, the bank, ergo the government, requires you to not disclose that you've received public funds. Why? I mean, I don't know. It seems to me like transparency would be a thing, but I don't know. Maybe it's to protect panic and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, if you are good at detective skills, then you might find a few clues. So in this article, I've been able to find a couple of names, and there is a couple of them that I'm thinking about investing in right now today, at least for the short term. So EasyJet is one of the few companies that reported its usage of the CCFF, announcing that it had drawn 600 million from it last week. So 600 million for EasyJet. House builder Redrow Homes. Now, I've invested in Redrow before. If you've seen some of my earlier videos, you will know that I was a fan of Redrow before all of this began, purely because it was paying a dividend. It looked very, very strong. Now, Redrow have revealed that it is getting access to an extra £300 million. Redrow had cash anyway, as far as I could see, looking at the fundamentals. Crest Nicholson is another one. Greg's another one. Now, so there's four. There's four potential companies to look at, and I've got a couple of them lined up here. So the other one, which is interesting, is Wizair, which again, look at my old videos, have been an investment for me prior to all of this. Now, Wizair are claiming they are eligible for the funding. Now, this is when we get into that murky business of news versus reality, and which is why I stay away from it, because Wizair released this story, press release, saying that they're eligible for the corporate funding, the COVID corporate financing facility. So therefore, it's going to get a bounce today based on the people that follow the news. So anyway, it's interesting to keep an eye on the narrative that companies spin for themselves, and those that you can actually confirm have received the funding via their own press releases or through the actual the official channels. Okay, so let's get into it. So let's have a look at Greg's. This is our coronavirus crisis. Bump 30%, maybe a little bit more. Yeah, a lot more at the lowest point down here. So since then, we've got a steady evidence of strength. The announcement of the new funding should, I think, if I were an investor, I'm not. I am purely a speculator and I like to gamble. This would be one on my radar. However, why I probably wouldn't do this is because Greg's generally trades at a high price. If I'm trading £5,000 worth of capital in a particular trade, I can get more for my money elsewhere. Anyway, Greg's, have a look at it if it tickles your fancy. Wizair, I've mentioned, although they released their own story, evidence of strength around here, I would also be tempted as a short-term hold, gamble, risk to be looking at that. Now, the two that I like above all of the others, which I am thinking actually about selling some of my investments in some other holdings at the moment and getting hold of these. Redrow, this looks very strong to me. They had a good position prior to all of this. You see that this is when I actually invested in them here previously, on the fact that there was lots of strength. We had COVID, bump, that's a huge drop. Surely means that there's some value in here now. However, trade what you see, not what you think. At the moment, I can see things slowly showing signs of strength, and the price is much more attractive to me, which means smaller movements in price yield better returns for me as an investor. So if you were spread betting, you might want to look at getting in this one long. If you've got an ISA, check out my how to invest in stocks and shares videos previously. Open an ISA if you haven't. If you've already got one, I'm sure you have if you're watching this. This might be a nice one to hold for the short term through to the end of the crisis, because if people know that this is getting, that Redrow are receiving CCFF funding, then that's probably gonna be this enough sentiment to bring other people into that investment. So I would be thinking of getting into these guys. And the third one, which was named, the fourth one, sorry, which was named, was Crest Nicholson. Also, same reason as Redrow, although admittedly not as attractive an investment to me prior to all of this. However, access to the funding and the huge decline, it looks good. Again, it's another one that I'm thinking of getting into. So that's just 4 little ideas and something to keep an eye out for if you are able to identify those companies who get access to the CCFF funding. And you could find that out by searching Google for news about CCFF. So eligible CCFF. Click onto the news tab, see which companies are announcing, because if you are eligible, you're going to announce it as a company because you want that sentiment. So keep an eye out for that. If you've got any inkling that is going to happen, it might be worth getting some money into that position. Anyway, hope that's useful, guys. Hope you're all trading well. I hope you're being happy as you can be in these times. Stay safe, and I'll catch you next time. Cheers. Bye.